Welcome to Steel Roses Podcast, a podcast created for women by women. My name is Jenny.
And I'm Alyssa. And we're here to bring you honest content in a space where we can still be real about the everyday challenges for women.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Very, very excited, as always, to record. I don't know. I know. I was going to say, I don't know why, but I do know why. I get really excited every time I get to do this because I love it so much. And it makes me so happy. It's so cheesy, but it makes me so happy and excited. Cousin, how was your week? Should we tell everybody about how we didn't even talk once this week?
Yes, literally. I was just going to mention that. I was like, literally, whenever I was available, Jenny wasn't available. Whenever Jenny was available, I was not available. So we are actually catching up with you all for the first time this week.
True.
What day is it? It's Sunday night, so we have not talked.
And also, to add complication to when I do call you, now Mimi wants to talk to me too.
Oh, that's the thing. She literally yells "Mom, go!"
It was it was the cutest,
go away.
Cutest thing this morning when she was like, "Excuse me, that's for me." I was like, okay. Anyway, updates, Melissa, spin class, general things. How's everything going?
So Florida, particularly South Florida, is literally melting into the sun.
Ugh.
So we are on a heat advisory almost every day this week. And the humidity hasn't been so bad, but it's literally you walk out and you feel like you're melting into the concrete. I've lived here 8 years. I've never experienced heat like this before.
You're kidding.
Yeah, no, literally. Like July and August are always bad, but this year and we've literally, the entire world has been setting records this month, so it's not that shocking, but it's unreal. My mother's air conditioner broke yesterday. Mine is it's working, but it's 80 degrees in my house right now.
Oh.
So I have to call, it's still running, but I have to call, but it's 96 degrees outside. So yeah.
Oh gosh. I feel kind of bad.
Again, never had this in the 8 years we've been here.
It's ironic that your mom's broke, by the way, because for everyone listening, the last time I saw her was at the family get together, and she literally told me that one of her bigger fears is if the AC breaks in Florida, and she's now she's dealt with it. That's so funny.
But yeah. Everything else is going. It's I can't believe it's the end of July. That I'm kind of shocked about. Oh, we had Mia's birthday. Have we not recorded since Mia's birthday? I can't remember.
No.
So Mia's 3.
I know.
And we got, as part of her birthday celebration, we had the bedding and the mattress and all that, but we were waiting on the bed frame. So it finally came. It was a 6-month process. I don't know what the heck was going on, but it took about 5 months for that frame to get here. So it finally got here, and we put it together. And so when she woke up and we were like, "Oh, Mia, go to your room." And she opened up and we set it up with all balloons and stuff.
Oh my God.
So she slept in her bed by herself and didn't want me to stay for the first time, and it was so bittersweet.
Oh my gosh.
I literally teared up, and then I didn't sleep all that night
because you were oh my gosh.
Again, things I used to make fun of before I had children.
No, that's such a big deal. Wait, I have to remember what I have something to say on that note, because that's very it is bittersweet when a milestone like that happens, because it's oh wait, I know I complained about it a lot, but you don't need me to stay in here with you. I'll stay. I can sit right there.
Yeah, of course, it's not consistent. The day after, she was like, "No, we're gonna
You're gonna
we're
snuggle
gonna
with me.
stay."
You know
Yeah.
what's gonna start happening is you're gonna fall asleep in there because that's what happened
Oh
to
yeah.
me a lot. A lot.
Literally, I think it was like 2 nights ago. I felt. Did I text you? I fell asleep at like.
Yeah.
She didn't take a nap, so we fell asleep at like 7:30.
Oh my
I
god.
woke up at like 11:30, like, oh my god, where
Oh
am
my.
I? And then proceeded not to be able to fall asleep, of course, because I took a 3 hour nap, so 4 hour nap, so I couldn't fall asleep till like 3:30 in the morning. So yeah,
Oh boy.
messing me up a little bit, but as long as she's good, we're good.
That's
But
such a
yeah,
big
that
moment.
in a nutshell, we had she had a blast. We went to Disney for her birthday, like the half week leading up to her birthday, and surprisingly, it wasn't. It was before this heat wave kicked in, so it was actually semi decent weather. And she just had a blast. I mean, it's the cutest thing, and it's exhausting. Anytime we go to Disney, it's exhausting.
I can
But
imagine. My gosh.
she had the best time with the characters, hugging them, taking pictures. Like literally, we walked into Epcot the first night we got there, and she literally was holding Matt's hand and my hand, and she looked up at us and she goes, "I'm just so happy."
Oh
And
my gosh.
I was like, "That's it. All the money we spend is worth
Like,
it."
it's totally
Good.
fun. Totally fun. Take everything. Take it all. Take it all. I
What do
don't
you
care.
want? Let's go.
My guys say stuff like that, but then it shortly thereafter, like within 5 minutes, they'll be like, "This is the best day of my life," and then 5 minutes later, something
Happen.
inevitably, and then it's like, "This is terrible. It's the worst day of my life," and we're always like, "Great, awesome."
But that's in a nutshell. How have you been? So I know you were crazy busy this week.
Yes.
Work,
My daytime job is getting busier, which is wonderful, which is amazing. But also it's interesting because I have worked so hard for so long to get to like the point in my career where I am currently. But then there's this other part of me that like recognizes that I want to spend more time with my family and my husband and my kids. And I'm like, I just want to be with them. And I don't want it to be like mommy has to do chores and I can't even spend time with them. So like it's very conflicting getting to this
Don't
point.
you find that it's always a catch-22? Like I feel like it's always a catch-22.
Yeah. Like I literally this exact position that I'm in at this exact part in my career, this is exactly what I've been working for for the past 17 years. This is
I remember
my
when
time to shine.
Like when you used a vision board, this is the type of position that you had.
This is like my dream. This is literally my dream job, essentially, in a nutshell. It's my dream job with my dream accounts and my dream clients. And it's like so conflicting because I'm like, oh my God, I've been working for this my whole life. Oh, wait, hold on. Now, when I started working towards this, I was 22 or 23.
Yeah.
So now I'm 30. So now I'm 39 and I'm like, oh man, I hit my goal. I'm like, this is amazing, but damn, this really takes a lot out of me. It does. It takes a lot out of me, the work that I do. Because I put all of me in there. I do. I put all of me in there from 9 to 5 and sometimes in the evening, but like I put all of me in because I'm like, this is something I wanted for so long. So it's just one of those things, but it's gotten busier. And so that also is part of the reason why me and you couldn't really connect because I was like, listen,
I think it's also harder in the summer for you. Well, with three kids and, summer camp's part day usually. So I think like when things are ramping up at work and at the same time you're kind of out of your typical school schedule, it complicates everything.
I saw this this post earlier today, and I actually am trying to quickly Google it, but I don't have the faculties to do that right now because I'm tired. But I saw this post earlier today, and I actually started following the person because it was about, it literally gave like a time lapse of like a work from home mom starting at like 5 a.m. And I'm like, oh, look, that's the time that I start. That's amazing. And it was like this, and we've all seen them. I mean, I'm sure there's thousands of them out there on social, but like, it was like a time lapse video of this woman who's working from home, and she's like up, and then she has a baby and she's breastfeeding, and then she puts the baby down, and then she's doing her work, and then she has to do something else. And another kid pops in. She had like, I think 3 or 4 kids total that popped in randomly in the video. And then you see her eating her food, and then you see her that she, helps the kids with something, and then the kids come in. And that's like how I feel on a regular basis. Like my kid, oh God, I have 4 days left of camp, by the way. There's only 4 days left. No. This is the last week of camp. So my husband and I shed a collective tear today. Like he was like, I was like, is there last week?
I thought it went into August.
No, they give the teachers a break. But it's their last week of camp. So, but and I've said this, and actually I started expressing this to the kids because I really don't want them to grow up and be like, my mom was such a bitch. I really don't want them to. So they probably will. They're going to. That's going to happen. They're going to say it about me. It's fine. I accept it. But what I try to explain it to them too, because like Monday through Friday, I am kind of a bitch. And when I log off of my job, and I'm immediately, it's like 5:01 and they're in my face and like, Mom, and then I get, what's for dinner and who's doing this? And Mom, are you going to play with us? Are you going to play with us now? And each one of them wants me to play with them individually in their own space at their own time. But I also have to make dinner, make sure everybody eats. And I also have to make sure, like, did everybody clear out their snack bags, and is laundry done? Do you have clothes for tomorrow? Are there socks for tomorrow? Like I think we've covered this in the mental load of motherhood. And I feel horrible Monday through Friday because all they want to do is spend time with me.
Oh no. And all you want to be able to do is be able to catch your breath, I feel like.
Yeah, because then it's like, and I tell them sometimes, I'm like, listen, you have to back up. And I've actually started to verbalize them, like, you have to back up. Mommy just needs a minute, okay? I'm like, because I had a really tough day, and like, I'll try to explain it to them. And sometimes they get it, and I'll hear them say to each other, like, the one time, I forget, like, I had a tough day, or I was stressed about work or whatever, and they cleaned the living room because they knew I was stressed. Yeah, they'll do stuff like that. Like, so I try to tell them, because I want them to understand, like, Mommy's not perfect. This is just part of mommy being mommy, and like, it's not me being mean. I'm not trying to be mean. Like, it is what it is. And I remember times when I was growing up where my mom wasn't real verbal with that kind of stuff. Like, she didn't communicate in that fashion. And so she would kind of just let everything kind of fester, and then she would blow her top. And then she didn't know how to like address the fact that she blew her top. So she would laugh it off instead of talking about why she blew her top.
Right.
And then she would just keep going. And then a few months later, she'd blow her top again. And that cycle happened all the time. And I actually started doing that here. I was doing it. And I remember I was telling Chris about it, about my mom. And he was like, oh, that explains a lot. I was like, what? Like, what? Excuse me? What did you mean? Like, but the reality is, I was like, oh, shoot. I do that. So now I don't blow my top as much, because I actually talk a lot more leading up to me blowing my top. Then I blow my top if they haven't stopped their nonsense. But, it is what it is.
No, I think that's great. Like, even with Mia, like, I forget. I think it was an episode of Bluey. And I actually like that little kids show, because the parent, like, there's stuff that goes over the kids' heads, and like the parents are real in it, so it's just funny.
I love shows like that.
But there was an episode of Bluey where like the mom was like, I just need to take a break, and like she was like with the kids, and I remember I was having a bad day. I think it was like 2 weeks ago or something, and Mia came up to me and was like, it's okay, Mommy, you just need a break. You're tired. Just take a break.
You're like, oh,
so I was like, all right, okay. I was like,
no
all
problem,
right.
Mimi. Where should I go?
Remember when Matt walked in, she was like, Daddy, Mommy needs a break. She goes, come over here. Shh, come over here. I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious.
Okay, that's really cute. I will say this though, that's starting to backfire on me a little bit because I have a tendency to vent out loud to myself like a crazy person. And this venting happens typically when my husband's not in the house because I need to just get it off my chest. But my kids, my kids hear it. And there's definitely been, I had to stop basically because there's been a few instances where they were like, oh, Poppy, you're in trouble. He'd come in and they would be like, and I would be fine at that point because and then I realized what was going on. And he was like, what did you say to the kids? And I'm like, oh shit. So I have to be really careful now with that kind of thing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so just kind of a normal week for me kind of thing. So I know we're focusing in on almost like a specialty topic for me anyway today. And I kind of want you to kick this off and kind of like intro like why you even started looking into these things. Like, and why do you continue to look into it? And like, how does this really affect like how you do things?
Let's take a quick break.
Are you interested in podcasting but not sure where to start? My name is Jenny Benitez, and I'm here to help guide you through your podcast launch and maintenance. Check out the link in the episode description for Podcasting Unboxed, your comprehensive startup guide. I am very excited to work with you.
Yeah, so this topic, I could literally talk about it for hours and hours and hours. Like, it's something that I've gone down the rabbit hole, and I do not recommend people going down the rabbit hole because it will consume you. But this idea of, I forget when I think, actually it kicked off when I was having those health issues before I figured out that I had a gluten sensitivity and a dairy sensitivity.
That makes sense.
Because I was trying to figure out like, why am I 22 years old and having such severe joint pain and constant migraines and all these things. And yes, the largest part for me was the dietary influence, but if you ever look into sort of functional medicine, so conventional medicine is based sort of on this idea of especially U.S. healthcare tends to be very emergency type related. So we try to treat symptoms, we try to treat events, like we're very good at doing that. But there's also this sort of route of, and again, I won't go too deep into this, but this idea about functional medicine and taking a more holistic approach. So instead of having separate like doctors look at specific parts of your body or particular systems, you would also have a functional doctor that would look at you holistically and sort of connect all those pieces, right? So it makes more of a bigger picture. But anyway, that's kind of how I started getting into this. And then I think Matt's family has a very strong history of autoimmune diseases. So both on his mother's side and his father's side, like his mom has celiac, his aunt had lupus, his sister has Raynaud's, which is when you ever see where the fingertips and the toes will turn into like whitish color, like they'll lose color.
No, I haven't seen
it.
it.
So it's like, but it's all of these autoimmune diseases. And then there was an article that came out that was like, oh, diabetes is now considered, it's controversial, but could be considered an autoimmune disease instead of. So it's really, really interesting. So my father started getting interested in it, and I started getting interested in it. And the idea behind it was that autoimmune diseases, why they've become so prevalent, why they've multiplied, we see a lot more celebrities that have come out with MS stories.
Yes.
all of these different things, why have they become so prevalent? Well, one theory is that our toxin exposure has become so high that they've linked it to autoimmune diseases, they've linked it to ADHD, they've linked it to increase in cancer. Now, it's not an exact one-to-one, like, oh, this is the reason why, but there's a statistically significant correlation, right? So anyway, that's kind of how I started going down this path. But the more research you do, the more you realize, like, basically, unfortunately, there's toxins everywhere. And since World War II, which was not that long ago, right? Between 70 to 80,000 new synthetic chemicals have been released into the environment or in our products that we use or consume. And that was sort of the tipping point. After World War II, there was such a boom in industry and things like that, that a lot of the companies started to go with, what was cheaper and what was easier to serve the mainstream, right?
Yeah, it was like it's easier for mass production. So essentially, and I know you'll go into more detail, like with certain things, but yeah, like essentially it is. If you like you said, like if you look at even if you look at the differences in kids' growth and puberty, and and
why
I
is
know
puberty hitting so much earlier now?
Why? Yeah, why? And not even that, but not even just that, like the height and the weight of people. Now, I know some of that has to do with the fact that we as a country are embarrassingly overweight due to portions and the types of food we eat, but that's a whole other. I could go on.
Yes,
we could. That's my area. But honing in on the toxins, and thank you for giving kind of the overview of why you started to look into it, because I know autoimmune disease. I've worked in that indication for my job, and there is so much that can affect you that you don't even realize you've been exposed to it your entire life, and you have no idea that this is something that's really causing a problem.
And it's a lot of our household products, our clothing, our cleaning supplies, kids' toys, all of these things we don't realize because there's no legal requirements that that it has to be announced, disclosed, that if it doesn't reach a certain level, right? But what the research is showing is that even when levels in, let's just say you take a multi-surface cleaner. I have it right here in my hand. I'm sitting in the kitchen, so but it's even low amounts is what they're finding is, yes, will it cause an acute attack and cause you to have an asthma attack or something? No. But what they're finding is low exposure in small amounts over time accumulate and can cause things like cancer, or can cause things like can trigger lupus-like symptoms. So it's this low-level exposure that does not have to be disclosed that people are now starting to worry about. And this includes everything. So this includes anything from your deodorant to your makeup to your pots and pans to your to the water we're drinking and how it's being treated. So the bad news is that research is showing that these toxins that we're being exposed to on a daily basis causes inflammation that can lead to serious health issues like I said, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, ADHD, autism, infertility. Fertility rates have skyrocketed in the past few decades, cardiovascular problems. The good news, though, is that once you start to become aware of this, there are steps that you can take to slowly reduce your exposure levels, because you just become more cognizant of it.
That's what I was going to say. I wanted to interject. All is not lost. in these kinds of scenarios because like, and not just in, and toxins specifically is what we're talking about, but even in general, like, you know, the drill, like unhealthy eating, you can undo even smoking. Did you know that when you quit smoking, I think it's like within 7 years or 10 years or something like that, that your lungs will have healed if you stop early enough.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like, well, so if you are a smoker, like if you're and I'm talking like if you're a 2-pack a day smoker and you stop at, you know, the right time before you've progressed into like having emphysema or something like that, your body will heal itself. And that goes the same with toxins in anything. We could just, you know what, actually I do want to talk about a little bit. Well, so we do know that, you know, long-term exposure in small amounts is bad because it will build up in your system. And we also know that there's a minimum acceptance level. So essentially it's acceptable for us to be exposed. You know, that's what you were just saying. Like it's acceptable for us to be exposed to a certain minimal amount. The one thing I want to call out is something that's stuck in my head, not toxins, but the same goes for like food industry items, not to digress us, but I had read somewhere once, or I saw in like a documentary or something, that canned goods are allowed to have a certain percentage of dead bugs and or feces.
Oh, yeah. See, like, yeah, same
They're
type
allowed.
of
That's
approach.
That's what's like bananas. There is an acceptable level of feces in all canned goods. Like what's an accept in my book? There is no acceptable.
Like zero.
There is a zero tolerance policy for feces anywhere.
Well, and it's like that, and that's the thing that blows my mind is that the responsibility is pushed from it's taken away from the manufacturer and placed on the consumer. So then we have to worry about, and we have to research, and most people don't. Again, they strategically do this because it's products are created for the mainstream, right? And if people are not aware, if the average person is not aware of this, then it's not going to be an issue, and then we can continue with these low level exposures, right? But it drives me crazy because I'm like, wait a second, you knowingly put a chemical into my child's toy that is flagged for concern about either developmental growth or cancer.
Yeah.
But because it's a lower amount, then you've approved this, and we do not have to be made aware. Like, it just blows my mind.
Crazy. It's like that. There's no warning label. Like you're not even giving me the chance to say I don't want to buy
aware of, like, letting me make that decision and like letting me make that choice.
And like, full disclosure, I don't look at any of this stuff. The only reason why I even know anything is because as you all, if you heard me say, if you've heard any of our other episodes, you'll know that I was in survival mode for like 7 years when my kids were growing up. So like I didn't look at anything. I was like, I'm just trying to get through the day. And then Melissa would call me and be like, you know, you really should.
This because you see,
and I'd be like, wait, what shouldn't I be giving my kids? Like, should I take this out of her mouth right now? She literally has it in her mouth. It's crazy. The one other thing I want to point out here too is the cost difference in products that are safe for you versus products that are not safe for you. Now, again, in all transparency, because I want this podcast to be a place of honesty and truth. When my kids were babies, we were like between a rock and a hard place essentially for like 4 years financially. Like when I had the twins, I had 1 month where I didn't get my full salary, and that basically put us in a bad place for like 2.5 years. Like, and then layering on top of that, everything, all the other costs. So even though there was many instances where Melissa and I would talk and I would say like, I want to go organic, or I'd say, I want to, you know, buy everything fresh. Right. And I would have this like, or I want to buy the healthier options. Tell me what you know. And I would like have her like just word vomit all over me, like word vomit on me. And she would tell me, and I'd be like, all right, I'm all in. And I would go to the store and I'd be like, oh my God, it was $600 and I got 1 cart of groceries. Like, I can't afford this.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's also not fair because essentially the system, I'm going to like go big idea here, but the system is essentially structured so that folks that don't have the means will never really be able to access these better products that are better for their health.
100% it becomes a class issue. And like, we try to avoid politics on our pod.
Sorry.
But it's the truth. I mean, when you, at the end of the day, like you're saying, even those that do become aware, it's a luxury to be able to lessen your toxin exposure. Yeah. It's for sure luxury.
That is,
isn't
disgusting.
That crazy?
It's disgusting.
Crazy.
And it's even more of a luxury now because, I mean, it's always a luxury, but like with the rate of inflation that we've been experiencing.
Insane.
When I go, my husband doesn't do the groceries ever. And so he went the other day. I tasked him with a couple of things. I was like, can you please pick up like a few of these items? And as you know, if you've been listening for a while, you know, our family's plant-based. Majority of it by the way, I just shifted to 100% plant-based myself. And I'm trying to like just keep my fingers crossed, but I'm trying to, because we were doing pescatarian for a while and I've decided like I'm cutting it all off. Yeah. So anyway, he went to the store and he was like appalled at the prices. And that's like regular stuff. That's just like regular nonsense stuff.
Right.
You factor in healthier, like organic options, not toxic, you know, greener, cleaning supplies. Like,
forget it.
You know what? No, I don't. I bought the 99-cent bottle of Clorox. Like I did. I really did. I'm sorry. I did. Like it sucks. It really does.
I wanted to give a couple examples because it sounds very like hippie. It sounds very non-tangible. So, a P.S. My husband thinks I'm crazy. He legitimately thinks, but I'm like, I don't care because I've found ways to make it sustainable. So I will share those as we move through this episode. But I wanted to give a couple examples. So, for example, cooking pans. I had no idea until I saw a New York Times article on this. The pan that I was cooking with that most Americans have leaches into your food. So the metals over time, as the pan breaks down, especially because everything's nonstick, well, that nonstick is a coating. And over time, as you use that pan, if you put it in the dishwasher, if you use a Brillo pad and it starts to break down that coating, when you continue to use that pan, those metals, those chemicals that create that nonstick coating, it leaches into your food. And then you consume it, which you should see Jenny's face right now. But it's crazy. So as it wears down, whatever that pan is made out of, it's going to leach into your food. So most of the times it will be aluminum, right? Which again, aluminum's pretty much in everything. But what the research is showing is as we can't detox it very well. So as these levels sort of accumulate in your body, it has been linked to cancer concerns and things like that.
God.
So literally, Teflon, right? Everyone's heard of Teflon pans. Teflon used to be the gold standard for American pans.
Yes.
Now they show that all along these chemicals known as PTFEs, they leak chemicals that increase your risk of cancer, elevated liver enzymes, hypertension, and preeclampsia. Right? But they know that. But they continue to.
That's bananas.
Or it's summertime. Another example would be kids' swimsuits, right? You go to the store and you think, oh, UV protection. That's what we want. Well, it turns out that for swimsuits, adults or children, either a better quality fabric can be used that creates some protection. So basically, companies can use a better quality fabric that's really tightly woven, and it creates the UV protection through the weaving of the fabric, right? Or they can create UV protection from a coating, aka chemicals. So what do you think companies are choosing? To spend more money on the fabric, or just spray and douse the clothing and
of course.
chemicals, right?
There's actually, I remember once coming across an article about clothing that's illegal to sell in California.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
California is the only state that
I was like, well, what the hell? I live in New Jersey.
Right.
Damn,
So literally, as your child, because that's what we do, right? Especially in New Jersey, it's at the beginning of the summer, you buy all new swimsuits, you wear them down during the summer, and then usually they get chucked because you're, especially for children, you're too big to wear it again. But as that fabric wears down, those chemicals are activated by the water, and then it absorbs into your child's skin. It's just ridiculous. I think it's
crazy.
Ridiculous.
It's bananas.
So if anyone's listening and is highly concerned now about your swimsuits, don't panic. Hannah Anderson, Primary, and Carter's, believe it or not, Carter's is actually a very non-toxic, budget-friendly kids clothing company. So yes, those three companies definitely avoid those toxic chemicals in their swimsuits. See, these are examples, and these are like everyday things. Again, we're talking cooking or pans and swimsuits. The other one that blew my mind, and again, over the years, you just see these articles that slowly make people more and more aware, because this was something that I remember seeing in the news, and like other people started paying attention to it, because back in 2019, the FDA and the administration that was in charge at the time approved the use of, I'm going to mispronounce this, but chlorpyrifos, and it's a pesticide that has been shown in the research, well documented, to cause brain damage in children. And literally, it was only banned in 2021 when there was an administration change, and then the FDA banned the use of this.
That's horrible.
In our food products. So again, but they were literally spraying.
They're spraying something that they knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not to mention the people that live and work on the farms or live in rural areas, they were getting completely exposed to this pesticide that we knew causes brain damage in children.
It's crazy. And the other part that's almost crazy, and now let's say like you want to do this and you want to do it more cost effective, there are some options. Obviously the cheapest options are going to be the ones that are like loaded with toxins and pesticides. Like it is what it is.
It's just how it goes.
But if you could make a trade-off, like if you try like to slowly, because I mean, I'm going to be honest with everybody. Like I'm probably eating toxins right now. Like, no, the spaghetti I was just eating was like spinach spaghetti. So I think I'm all right. But like, I'm not all in. I'm not as deep into this as Melissa is. I make conscious choices. Mine is more focused around food, just because that's the journey that like my family's been on. But if you make like small tweaks, like one fell swoop is not going to be possible. It's not manageable. And I don't even think Melissa did it in one fell swoop.
Oh, hell
This
no.
has been like years of
can
research.
Yeah.
You can't. And it's really a learning curve. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because if you're listening to this and you're starting to get nervous and you're like, oh my God, like what the hell am I putting in my body or my family, my kids or whatever? What I want to point out is that, look up a couple things. Look up your cleaning supplies, look up your laundry detergent, like, something that is easy to swap.
Yes. As you run out. So that was my approach. This does not have to be a perfect process. All you can do is limit what you can, because even knowing everything I know, and there are, especially recently, I've met a couple like moms that know way more than even I do and go even beyond what I do. And Matt didn't believe me, but I was like, no, it's 1,000% true. But it's not a perfect process. We can't avoid toxins. That's at the end of the day, there's toxins in our water.
Yeah.
The way they treat our water, we can avoid that. There's toxins in the air we breathe, because you can't avoid everything. Okay, you can avoid living near a farm, but then do you live near a highway? Do you live close to a gas station? Like, there's no way that you can avoid everything. All you can do is lower your exposure where you can. And again, it doesn't have to be like you're saying, like it doesn't have to be a full swap of everything all at once. No. It doesn't have to be a rabbit hole process. What I would do, because at first, when I first kind of started looking into this, I was like completely overwhelmed, and I was like, oh my God, look at all of the things that I'm exposing myself to. And it really kicked up when I became pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like, let me pay a little bit more attention to this. But what I would do is when I would run out of something and I had to buy the product over again. So whether you're talking dish soap, whether you're talking laundry soap, the foods I was eating, when I had to replace it anyway, that's when I would do a little bit of research and find a better option. And that's all you can do. Because again, you can't eliminate your exposure to toxins. They're everywhere. But what you can do is chip away at the exposure level.
Yeah.
Now the best thing is when I started all this, you would spend an hour, what is like Googling and doing research on like, what is a non-toxic option for X, right? The greatest thing now is that so many people are becoming more concerned about this, is that there's easy solutions. So now there's an app. So for our listeners out there, this thing has been phenomenal. It's called EWG. It stands for Environmental Working Group. This is an organization that has basically done the research for you. So you download the app on your iPhone or Android or whatever, and you open up the app and you can literally put in either the brand of the product, or you could just put a product. So say you're looking for toothpaste, you can literally type in toothpaste and it's going to give you a bunch of options. It rates it on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the least concerned exposure, and then 10 being the worst type of product that there is out there. And it breaks it down. It shows you whether these are they have like a specific scoring for cancer. They have a specific scoring for fertility or developmental concerns for children. And then I think the other one is like sustainability and environment. So they score each product in each of these categories, and then they get an overall score. Again, sorry, that's a lot of detail, but the point being is you can download this app, literally type in what you're looking for, and it'll give you a list of either EWG certified products or products that score low on their scale, meaning that there aren't sort of toxin exposure concerns for that product. So it really is amazing. And then you just start to learn the lingo. Like for clothing, I can't afford to buy organic clothing, especially not for me and my husband. For me, I was trying to do that, but then I found out that there's like a certification. So there's a standard 100 by, how would you say that, cousin? OEKO Tech. So
OEKO?
Right?
Yeah.
So this certification basically means that this product has been tested for harmful substances and has been certified harmless for human health. So this is a new, so this is basically any sort of fabric. So it could be curtains, it could be upholstered furniture, it could be rugs, or it could be clothing. But companies are starting to pick up on this. So for instance, Carter's, the majority of Carter's clothing is now certified.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And they will, when you go on the websites, if you click on, like, let's just say I was buying me a pajamas, I can click on it and it will list in the details whether that particular piece is certified or not. So again, it's like learning these little tiny things, and it doesn't have to be all at once, but once you start picking up on like, oh, I could use this app, or oh, I could just look for this certification, it becomes so much easier. Again, I know I get a lot of pushback, but the reason why I wanted to talk about this is I remember when I was pregnant, I brought up the concern. I had read, I don't even know where I came across this, or I think someone else in my graduate program had told me about it because she had a child earlier on. And I remember learning that Tylenol, that a new study had just come out, and it showed that women that took Tylenol were more likely to have, like statistically significantly more likely to have a child with autism or ADHD.
Yeah.
And this was
years ago,
5 years ago. And I remember reading that. And I remember when I got pregnant, I said, listen, I still would get an occasional migraine. So I was like, listen, if I get a migraine while I'm pregnant, what do I take? I really would prefer to take Motrin, because Tylenol and Motrin do not have the same active ingredient in them. And she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, I'm telling you, I read the journal article where it talks about how they've shown that there really is a correlation between women that were exposed to acetaminophen, which is the active ingredient in Tylenol, and these outcomes for their children. And I remember she looked at me like I had 10 heads.
Yeah.
And that I was crazy. And I was like, no, I'm being serious. And they kind of brushed it off like, oh, first time mom, she's just paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I'm a little bit more, what would you say, cousin? I'm a little more, I don't know what the right word is.
Detailed?
Yeah, maybe. Or I'll even put the word anxious on it. Like I was, like I wanted to be aware of certain things. But I'll never forget that it came out. And so I guess they must have done another round of studies.
Yeah.
So it came out in the New York Times this year.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's all these class action lawsuits going on.
I know, because I looked into it.
That Tylenol, it was a study from Johns Hopkins University, and it says that exposure to acetaminophen in the womb and in infancy, so if you're giving your children's Tylenol, which is what
everybody gives, yeah,
may increase your child's risk for attention deficit and hyperactivity disorders and autism spectrum disorders.
Yeah, and I'd like to throw out there, I looked into it because 2 out of 3 of mine, I am leaning toward ADHD. And I remember I saw this article come out this year, and I remember being like, son of a gun, I've been giving them Tylenol their entire lives. And yeah, but there's a cutoff point, right? Like it's not like
it's not like oh, you give your child what it wants. No, this is not a one-for-one in here.
Yeah, it's well, no. Besides that, there's also like if you're pregnant or if they're little, like whatever. But like now, as bigger kids, actually, you know what? I didn't even look that up, so I can't speak to it very well. But now that they're bigger kids, is it okay to give them Tylenol at this point?
Right. What they've found so far in the research is that children that have been exposed to this drug in the womb and in infancy, so they're talking under 2 years old.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you said that because I remember I think that was the first thing I thought, like, oh my God, do I need to get this out of my medicine cabinet right now?
And no. So, but I remember going back to that OBGYN, and she literally apologized to me because she goes, I know I treated that you were crazy. And she goes, it turns out that you're right. And I was like, and you know what? I didn't make a big deal. I was like, oh no, like I understand, like, you know, you didn't have access to the data or whatever, or, you know, it wasn't a well-known thing and it's just becoming because it's in the news now. But I remember specifically, because my daughter had a tongue tie, she had to have a procedure done. And even the pediatric dentist, he was just like, oh, you can give it to her, you know, give her Tylenol every couple hours. And I was like, no, I don't want to give her Tylenol. And I ended up doing, it's a laser procedure. So it really was, and ended up not being very painful, but I was prepared for, like, I had children's Motrin because she was over a certain age. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to follow my gut and go with this. And as long as I'm within like it was all within the label use, like she was of a certain age, I was like, I'm going with Motrin over Tylenol because I know that this drug has been linked to concerns. So again, the only reason I'm telling you this very long tangential story is just the idea of being vigilant, being an advocate for yourself, for your family, stick with your gut. Once you become more aware of whatever's in the mainstream isn't necessarily what's best for you and your family, I think it makes you sort of take a different perspective. Like, I was okay being looked at like, oh, you're the crazy mom, or you're the crazy person. Like, I was like, all right, if you want to put that label on me, that's fine, but I'm going to still do my own research. I'm still going to look into these things. And it's just funny now with all these things starting to come out and people coming back and saying, you know what, maybe you weren't that crazy, or, maybe you did have a point, or can you tell me more about this?
There was two things I wanted to elaborate on. Number one, which if you're a mom and you're listening to this, I don't want you to panic. Pizza bagels are pretty low on the scale. I downloaded the app that Melissa recommended, and I just want to put that out there because my son is basically made of pizza bagels. So pizza bagels are cool. And as well as Purdue chicken nuggets, just so everybody knows, like I'm, and this is not a plug. This is not an affiliate marketing situation. My kids are basically composed of pizza bagels, chicken nuggets. So those are okay. Download the app though. Everything's on there. I was like, as Melissa was talking,
easy.
I was like in there. The other thing I do want to say here, we've actually talked about this before, and we'll talk about it again over and over again, is the whole advocating for yourself bit. Because, and by bit, I mean, you need to do this, advocate for yourself, because we can trust our doctors. We can trust, professionals of any, walk of life, basically. You can trust your healthcare professionals. However, they are people. Yes, they have a degree and they have an expertise and they went to school, but there is a lot of research out there. And as Melissa experienced, and as I've experienced even with my own kids' health related issues, I would go and present my case to the doctor and say, listen, I think this is what's going on. And they'd be like, maybe not. Why don't you try this, try that? One in particular story was when one of my kids needed surgery and I knew it.
Oh, yeah.
But 3 pediatricians told me no. And they kept brushing me off. And I said, okay, well, I said to my husband, I'm taking her to the hospital then, and they're going to tell me I'm right. And they did. And they were like, are you a doctor? And I was like, no, I'm a mom. So, I told a little bit there because I want you all hearing this to know, like, you do have to actually look into this stuff yourself, because think about you and your job. You have so much you're juggling. You don't know everything. You don't know what's brand spanking new when it comes out. Like, and neither do the doctors. Like, they're people. They're just doing the best that they can at their job. But they're not going to be able to really know everything all the time. So you do really have to be vigilant and start maybe lightly looking into things. Hence me looking up pizza bagels, because I need to make sure that, we're good.
Oh yeah. And like, I don't pretend to know more than healthcare providers. I give all the credit in the world to our doctors, our nurses, all of our healthcare professionals. But I did want to make the point that what serves the mainstream isn't necessarily what's going to serve you and your loved ones the best. And that's really what was my sort of like take away or take home point. But again, this isn't like all for nothing. Don't fall down that rabbit hole. Mia still eats Happy Meals. And you know what I mean? This isn't like everything has to be perfect all the time. It's just that when you can lower your toxin exposure level in certain areas,
go for it.
Part of the time, then why not? So if you're running out of dish soap, you can plug it into that app and say, okay, like when I go to the store, do I pick up Dawn or do I pick up whatever?
Right,
we use
whatever.
Mothers, but but yeah, so simple things like that. But it's something that I did want to mention because when I read that New York Times article on this sort of class action lawsuit about Tylenol, I was like, son of a bitch. Like, I was made to feel crazy. And now I'm glad that I told, like, again, one of my best friends suffers from migraines really bad, and she just had her baby. And I told her when she told me that she was pregnant, I was like, listen, I know you get a lot of migraines and you're usually taking something, Tylenol. Well, she had at that time a prescription for migraine medication, but obviously she couldn't take that while she was pregnant. And she was like, oh yeah, my doctor just said to use Tylenol. I was like, please just use Motrin.
Yeah.
And she did. And when that came out, she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. And again, it's not like this hero complex. It's just that for whatever reason, we don't get the information up front.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super terrifying and it's super frustrating. And it's like once you become more aware, when you share that with people around you, eventually maybe we can put the responsibility back on the manufacturers, and maybe eventually we can demand better, right?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point.
This episode may be one little tiny step,
one little drip in the.
But you never know. Maybe someone that's listening finds themselves pregnant or something, and they won't use Tylenol, to use Motrin.
Yeah. Honestly,
you know what I mean? Just like little tiny things like that. So
yes, exactly. Little things
again,
like that are
thank
progress.
you for listening to me ramble, cousin, and allowing me, because we had this episode kind of on the back burner, and I was like, I think we should still do it, because I was like, yeah, people might think I'm like neurotic or whatever, but I was like, you know what? If one person listening, if it makes a difference, or they look into certain things, I mean, again, all of this is part of your genetic disposition, right? We can't change our genes, but we can change our environmental exposures, right? So something that is within our control, and again, baby steps, you can make these little changes. My husband is one of those that is like, you're full of crap. But he, I was like, what difference does it make if we buy this laundry detergent instead of that? So he goes with it. So again, little baby steps, but I appreciate you all listening to me ramble on about this. But if it helps one person, then
it's worth it.
Made my day.
That's actually, just so you guys know, like listeners know, like we've actually said that to each other a couple of times. If just one person hears our podcast and one of the episodes happened to align with something that they needed to hear, then like that's what we needed. That's what we wanted. Because the whole origin really of this podcast was because we wanted to make sure that we were putting information out there that wasn't really talked about that much. And this is one of those things. And we wanted to bring to people's attention like things that made us feel stupid, like questions we used to ask each other because we were too embarrassed, or we were kind of shamed to thinking, oh, again, you're crazy, like you're crazy. But that was the whole point of this podcast. So, thank you for listening to that. I will say this, because it is confusing, as Melissa said. One, download that app that she had recommended.
EWG.
Thank you.
It's a little green icon app. Easiest thing. Literally, you could type in toothpaste. You could type in pizza bagels.
I did Crest toothpaste also. All good, guys. So that's what I was going to say. Download the app. Whatever. Look at it once in a while. If you don't want to and you're just trying to figure out something, a little bit easier, then go with something easier. The other thing I was going to say here is, if you're hearing this and you're like, I'm not really sure how to get started, it is overwhelming. You can email us at stillrosespodcast@gmail.com. Melissa will access that email and she'll respond to you. Like, email us if you are like curious about the journal articles that Melissa accessed and what she was doing with that. Like, I'm being summoned. yeah, if you're interested in the journal articles that Melissa looks at, because like there's
We
pretty
can share
significant,
all of these things.
Don't worry about it. Message us. Melissa will get back to you. And again, and this is just kind of like a more global kind of like housekeeping thing. You can reach us through our website as well, stillroseswomen.com. And you can, ask questions if you want to, or even if you know something that you want to share with Melissa and myself, like send it along. Like we're into it. We want to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah. And there's, for those of you that are interested in it, there's a lot of great resources out there. Naturalbabymama.com is a great website that sort of will get you going if you're interested in sort of like how to lessen your toxin exposure or where to start. GentleNursery.com is another. But overall, again, just start slow. And all you have to do is be more conscious if that's something that interests you. We're not saying that everybody has to do this all the time. Again, Mia eats Happy Meals
that's on the bad list. I'm just going to say it.
So, but just start slow and download that app, and you can kind of slowly go down that path.
Ease into it. One other item to note before we say good evening to all of you is that we actually have a new arm of our website is coming out where we actually are listing out products that we both use. Mine are clearly probably not in the toxic area. I have to Google all mine. I'm going to look all mine up before I recommend them. Maybe because I'm not going down that path. And everyone's going to be like, we don't want to use Jenny stuff. But we're both actually going to be putting products out there that we use at home for our families and things that we really are really pleased with. So you'll see that announcement coming through our social channels, but it'll be featured on stillroseswomen.com as well. So you'll have access to all the products that Melissa likes to use.
Yes, it'll be a much easier place. I won't sound so crazy. It's like, here, if you want really clean water, I recommend this water pitcher.
Yeah.
But yeah, so please go check that out once that's up and live.
Yeah, so that's just a little teaser. Thank you all for hanging with us and listening. Again, we are incredibly appreciative and grateful for all of you. And we'll continue to do this podcast because we're getting feedback and followers, and it's amazing. So very grateful for all of you.
Yes, we appreciate all the engagement. We appreciate the small and growing community that we're building here. So thank you all, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.